And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It is brought to you by the Fanatic Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. And, of course, the Football at 4 today focusing a lot on the Eagles and Chargers, the Jalen Carter injury. Andrew DiCecco is here. We'll get to him in just a second. But don't forget, visit my friends over at the Nizams. Get a free order of spicy tandoori chicken wings for dine-in customers. When the Eagles win, you win. Nizam also has a great lunch buffet today, Saturday, Sunday. They also have a great banquet space that can seat up to 100 people for private events and celebrations. I'll have my Friday 5 coming up in just a couple of moments as well. We'll get you our 5 favorite games of this Week 14 slate. But with the Eagles playing on Monday night, we'll take a little look at that one and what the Eagles might be looking at in this matchup with the Chargers. To do that right now for Football at 4, we bring in Andrew DiCecco, InsideTheBirds.com, the Inside the Birds podcast. He joins us right now on a Friday edition of Football at 4. Let's dive into Eagles and Chargers and, of course, Jalen Carter. I want to get your unique take on this because obviously the Carter injury has an impact, but you know this team pretty deep down the rotation, down the depth chart. How does this look behind Carter? How do you anticipate this kind of looking on Monday night?
Well, however long Jalen Carter is out is going to be pretty, and it's an enormous loss for the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't want to shortchange it at all. Look, Jalen Carter is a force in the middle of that defensive line, and you even saw that even though he wasn't efficient in run defense, he was able to get to Caleb Williams. He had a couple of batted passes in that game, but he clearly wasn't himself. In fact, in terms of run defense, I think that was probably the worst game that I've seen Jalen Carter play as a member of the Philadelphia Eagles, and he was clearly dealing with something. I know the shoulder has plagued him since really over a year now. At his training camp, he missed the first 3 practices, and it's something that it was evident when you're watching him not be able to disengage and maybe go around certain blocks instead of attacking them like he normally does, that he was dealing with something. Then after the game, he said something that was a little bit cryptic and said, it's my problems. I'm not, I'm paraphrasing. I'm not going to tell everybody what I'm dealing with. And Vic Fangio, of course, confirmed that. So now the onus falls on Moro Jomo, falls on Jordan Davis, Byron Young, Ty Robinson, and they have Gabe Hall on the practice squad as well. And it's going to be week to week, so we'll see where it goes from here. But it's certainly a big loss in a big spot for the Eagles. Yeah, and I know that Ojomo's played a lot. In fact, he played the most snaps of all the defensive tackles last week, one more than Jalen Carter played. Is there a guy that maybe hasn't got a lot of playing time that you think maybe can step in and help this team out? Well, it's kind of hard to ask any player to be able to play more. I think they need to be careful about asking Moro Jomo to play too much because he's already playing a lot. He's a little bit more undersized. Jordan Davis is having a really good season, playing a lot more snaps than he has in his career. It's hard to ask him to handle more. Byron Young, he played 38 snaps against the Bears. It wasn't good. I mean, I don't know if he's in a position where he can really take on more. Ty Robinson has only played 35 snaps this season. I've gotten asked about Ty Robinson, Mike, perhaps more than any other player that I can remember this season. Lewis Seen was another one that comes to mind. But Ty Robinson, 6 games, 35 snaps, hasn't been a part of the rotation. It's hard for me to say that he's going to make a noticeable impact, without having seen him play much besides the preseason. And then they have Tyquan Graham on the practice squad, who's been around the league for a while. I believe he was with the Falcons, even a starter for the Falcons, and he's a pretty good run defender. We'll see if they either elevate him or Gabe Hall just to absorb some of those reps. But there's nobody that immediately comes to mind because the Eagles are already asking a lot of the top 3 players that I mentioned. All right, so and obviously, they've been gashed on the ground the last couple of weeks, especially last week against Chicago. So this is not ideal, even though you kind of hinted that Carter has not been as strong against the run. They're going to have to try to figure things out against the run here. And what do you think of this running matchup against this Charger team, which is kind of a weird situation? We don't know if Herbert's going to play or not. We think he is. Would they be more inclined to run the ball more or less because of this hand situation? And how is this matchup against the Chargers, whose offensive line, much like the Eagles, has a lot of injury problems? Yeah, I think they would have run it a lot with or without Jalen Carter, just because of the hand situation. Even though it's on his non-throwing hand, they're going to want to probably try to alleviate as many unnecessary hits as possible for Justin Herbert. And by the way, for Carter, I mentioned that he's been dealing with that shoulder for a while, not in training camp as well. So it's the entirety of this season, the year. And it's something that you hope that he can get it right and help the Eagles down the stretch here. But I'm expecting the Chargers and they could have Amarian Hampton, their rookie running back, available for Monday night. So that's the approach that I'm expecting, a run-heavy approach. I don't think it's going to be a very high-scoring game, and I do believe that when you look at the Chargers' offensive line, they have two reserve tackles. They lost Joe Alt and they lost Slater, two really strong tackles on the outside. Mekhi Becton is not playing well this season, but all that taken into consideration, I still believe that they're going to try to establish that run, especially based off of what you just saw in that Bears game. The Eagles struggle, 281 rushing yards combined from Chicago. And I'm sure they'll pick their spots in the passing game. They do have a very deep receiving core led by Keenan Allen, Ladd McConkey, who's a terrific route runner. Keenan Allen, one of the best route runners in the NFL. Quentin Johnston's coming into his own. And Aronde Gadsden II is a player that I may have mentioned with you during the draft out of Syracuse. He might be a good mid-range option in intermediary levels for Justin Herbert to get the ball out of his hands.
Yeah, I really like some of their weapons on offense, especially McConkey. He's the kind of guy, Andrew, I feel like the Eagles have just never had. That guy who can just terrorize you from the slot and just works the hashes, knows where he needs to get to. I feel like the Eagles have lacked that type of receiver basically our whole lives. They've never had that guy, and this is a really interesting matchup. Who gets that assignment? Is that a Cooper DeJean thing?
Yeah, I think it's a Cooper DeJean thing. And Ladd McConkey, to your point, not only is he a good route runner and good at creating space, but he's also good at finding the soft spots in zone. And he's a very quarterback-friendly receiver because he always seems to be able to shake open. And I do think that that'll be a Cooper DeJean assignment, a daunting one at that. And I'm curious to see who handles Keenan Allen, and because he's such a good route runner, even at this stage of his career, and he has a lot of savviness, and he's able to create separation. So whether it's Quentin Johnston or Keenan Allen, it's going to be a tough task for Quinyon Mitchell and Adoree Jackson if the Eagles aren't able to provide a lot of pressure, which I don't necessarily foresee because they do have the two reserve tackles, as I mentioned. But We'll see how it plays out because they have a plethora of weapons.
Yeah, they like the Eagles have had some issues up front, and when their line is when their line is intact, they're borderline Super Bowl contenders. When their offensive line is out, they are kind of middle of the road, and right now they seem to be a little middle of the roadish with that offensive line. Right? I mean, is that where you kind of feel the same thing?
Yeah, it's very beatable, and that's why it's a shame that they won't have Jalen Carter to take advantage of that opportunity. I think this could be a spot where Moro Ojomo really is able to create some interior pressure up the middle. But yeah, I mean, you said it best. I mean, it's an elite offense when their offensive line is at full strength, and sort of along the lines of the Eagles in a plotting type of offense that labors their way down the field more often than not because of the state of their offensive line, which is why I'm expecting them to test the Eagles in the ground game first and see if they're able to get any traction there, and then that could be their most sound plan of attack given the injury to Justin Herbert.
All right, Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. A lot. So much. This is, I want to, we did see the Hard Knocks the other night. Everybody has their thoughts on what they saw, and you're trying to read things there. I'm not trying to put a lot of stock into that. One thing I thought was interesting, though, and you talk about the mood of this locker room at 8-4, going through a little bit of a, malaise right now. You've been around the locker room in practice pretty much since the beginning of the season. Do you sense that morale's down, they're kind of searching for answers, or does it seem like business as usual in there?
I would say business as usual. They just have a very business-like approach. And I know a lot was made going into the season to not rest on your laurels, not reference the Super Bowl and all of that. But, I mean, you have to think about some of the preeminent leaders on this team and what their character is. And Jalen Hurts, stoic, right? Devontae Smith, same way. Look across the offensive line. Jason Kelsey's not there. He had a personality, but that's not. It would be out of character for them to be like what you saw the Dallas Cowboys do. Now, that's not to say that they don't take joy in winning, and you'll hear music in the locker room after the game and things like that. They certainly do. But knowing that they are very well aware of what it takes and they've been there before, I think that they just kind of approach it like a business week in and week out, while still having fun when necessary. But it's not like a young upstart type of team. They kind of all follow the lead there of Jalen Hurts, and he's stoic and very matter of fact and businesslike. And I think that's good. That's a good way to be. And I think because he's like that, you're able to not necessarily dwell on losses or tough patches of the season. You kind of just get back to work and get back on the horse and hope you get things right.
The opening scene of the Hard Knocks is when Brandon Graham is talking to Nick Sirianni, and he says, one of these, games, the run game is just going to take off. And Sirianni says, I agree. That's why we stick with what we do. Does that imply to you that they are stubborn and they do not see a problem with this line and they think they're getting close? And would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to interpret it. And I know that yesterday, Jordan Mailata said that there's going to be some new things in the run game. So we'll see what that means. But I really do believe, Mike, you can perceive it, and rightfully so, as stubbornness or conviction with what works. And they know that they believe in their formula offensively. And Jordan Mailata said this so many times this year, we're a hair off, we're close. It doesn't look that way on the field on game days, but I really do believe that Nick Sirianni and the team believes in running the football and trying to get things going, and that they are very close to breaking something. So I think I look at it more as conviction in and doubling down in what they believe in terms of their ideologies and principles.
Fangio was asked this week about Jahad Campbell. He said, I probably should have played him more. I mean, yeah, maybe. I don't know that it makes an impact either way, but are you surprised at how – because their problem against the run, Dean had been the better player against the run. So I don't know how this can – it's a weird situation moving forward here. How do you get him more snaps? Because this is a talented player that probably can help this defense. It's just where does he fit?
Yeah, he absolutely is. And even Vic Fangio took ownership of that. He said, I probably should have gotten him more snaps. That's on me. And, I mean, you play 87 snaps, Mike. There has to be you have to be able to carve out 12 or 15 snaps for your first-round linebacker, who, by the way, was playing good football. It's just Nakobe Dean is at a different part of his career right now, where he is highly intelligent. He's mastered all of the responsibilities that are required to be a linebacker in Vic Fangio's system. It alleviates some responsibility from Reed Blankenship, who's also a back-end a back-end patrolman, if you will, who processes a lot of information and helps a lot of guys get lined up. And for Nakobe Dean, he's very proficient in run defense. Wasn't the case on Friday, for that same could be said for the whole defense, but he's also a good blitzer. So I think knowing that he's done it before and been there before, maybe you were leaning on that a little bit too much, and I think it has been at the expense of Jahad Campbell, but you have to find a way to get him involved. Could be situational based. I look at a game like the Chargers, who they can throw the football around, they can spread you out, and that would suggest that there should be opportunities for Jahad Campbell to get on the field where you can see his cover ability, his length, his sideline-to-sideline range, really be able to take shape and help the defense, because I think that there has to be a spot for him in this defense. They complement each other well, Nakobe Dean and Jahad Campbell, because they both have different skill sets, and I do believe that you're going to see him get, whether it's 12 or 15 snaps. It's also worth noting that he played 20 snaps against the Lions, 11 against the Cowboys, 0 against the Bears. Yeah. So it was trending in that direction, and I think you almost needed it to get to that point where it's like, oh, we got to find a spot for this guy and get him on the field, because he's a pretty damn good football player and can help the unit.
All right, I know you're getting out of here. Let's get two quick rapid fires. One, Epps, is he the better option over Sidney Brown?
Yes, he is.
All right,
and I just think he's fundamentally sound. Started 17 games for the Eagles in 22 and the postseason, and there's less guesswork there.
Would you like to see them mix more Bigsby, Shipley? I don't even care. Everyone's like Bigsby, just because he has 9 yards to carry. I get it. Those are gaudy numbers. I don't care if it's Bigsby, Shipley, just a mix. Do you think they should stick with Barkley as the 95% of the touch, or would you like to see them mix in either Shipley and or Bigsby?
Well, to be clear, I think Saquon should take the lion's share of the work. But I looked at what they did on that first drive against the Packers. They worked in all three running backs, and they all bring something different to the table. And I think when you're an offense searching for answers, and you can't turn over your personnel, but there are certain players you can implement a little bit more to try and conjure some sort of creativity. Shipley in the receiving game, the best receiving back that they have, is probably their best pass protector, and then Bigsby provides a spark. So I think as those change-ups, it should complement what you have in Saquon Barkley, and hopefully for the Eagles, you can jumpstart that running game.
All right, we'll see if that gets going on Monday Night Football. You can listen to the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. You can check out more from Andrew DiCecco and the guys over at Inside the Birds, InsideTheBirds.com, the Inside the Birds podcast for football at 4, right here on the Sports Bash, live on this Happy Hour Friday. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. A little snowy out there today, but I know that the football this weekend, got the conference championships, got some NFL, very good slate of games, which you're going to get into in just a minute. Andrew, thanks, man.
I'll be in L.A. this weekend, so it'll be nice and warm, hopefully.
No snow for you, man. Take care. Safe trip.
Take care, Mike.